Hello, my name is Nicole, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I titled this message, Workplace Leadership, Attack on Leaders, the divisive measures that those that are in the workplace come up with, these manipulators, to bring down a leader, to cause all sorts of problems between workers. Why would they do this? Well, you have some people that they will bring the drama and the trauma, the abuse and everything else that they have either done to their family members and friends privately. They will bring these sorts of measures into the workplace. I know some people don't bother to connect the dots, but being that this is a channel where we have constantly talked about family members and friends and people who are toxic, people that are up to no good, when we're going to various events or when we're talking to others and we find out some things, these same individuals are also in the workplace setting, and they will use power and control tactics that they have used with their spouses, with their children, with their parents, grandparents, whoever. They will use these types of things in the workplace. And in time, the attack shows up on the leadership, whether privately or publicly, for other workers to see. The weakness is out there, and now you have a leader who cannot keep operations running smoothly. There was an enemy from the start, and some leaders dismissed the enemy, said, I'm not worried about her, I'm not worried about him, went on and acted in ways that were not leader-like. And so you give the worker or workers a stick to crack your head with, so to speak, when you are not doing the things that the handbook says you should do, that the owners have had the meeting and told everyone to do. When you are not doing what you're supposed to do. Oh, the child of God, he or she knows that God is our leader, and we are to act according to his will. We are to look in his handbook and follow precepts. And when we don't, we reap what we sow. We know that there are consequences to action as well as inaction on God's time clock, not ours. The leader that is in a secular organization, or maybe a one that's ordained by God, he or she knows that there are enemies. But some will once again dismiss that there's enemies because people are smiling, because people are joking, because people are being nice, because people aren't raising up a ruckus. But do you really know who your enemies are? Somebody needs to get that book, Know Your Enemy, the Christian's Critic, because enemies are everywhere and they come in all sorts of shapes, sizes, and colors. But you got some of these leaders that because this one looks a certain way, that's not an enemy of mine. Because we got the same interests or we come from the same background, that's not an enemy of mine. You got some who will say that this one is a friend and this one is my favorite and all of this other stuff, when no, these are your workers. And you shouldn't have any favorites, because you never know when a favorite can turn around and be a snake. You never know when that one that you have entrusted valuable information to can be the one that brings you down. There are some connections that some people have. They are unholy connections, ungodly connections, immoral connections, the type of connections that you may not agree with, leader, but yet you will support this one and that one and give them everything, give them all sorts of opportunities and so forth, not knowing though that sooner or later that individual is going to figure out a way to bring you down, because he or she doesn't like the fact that you're not by the book, doesn't like the fact that you don't work like everybody else works, doesn't like the fact that you don't delegate responsibilities in a responsible manner, doesn't like the fact that you might be that one that's the player, the pimp, the hustler, or what have you, beguising yourself as this righteous leader. Come on. Woo, Jesus. Somebody needs to take heed, because you see, there's somebody always in a group that's watching. There's always somebody in a group that's documenting. There's always that one that doesn't like too much of anything or anyone, that's always complaining. Your name shows up in the next meeting. Your name shows up out there in internet world. Your name shows up in various organizations and meetings and so forth, and you didn't know. Or how did this information get leaked? Who are you angering in the group? Who is that one who's the wolf in sheep's clothing? You keep your enemies close, very close. I have been in the workplace setting, more specifically office setting, since I was 15 years old. And I will tell you that I've seen my share of shady behavior with so-called leaders and workers. I've seen people have their favorites, and I've also seen where their favorites badmouth them something terribly. I've seen where people have taken folks out to dinner, have shook hands with the enemy, and the enemy has brought them down low when he or she thought that everything was okay and all right. I've seen people hide money, take money, steal from folks, from establishments and so forth in a covert sort of way, not in an overt way, because of course they don't want to be found out. But you know something is funky when you look at the spreadsheet. You know that something is funky when you go in the cabinet and you see that what you sat there is not there any longer. You know when something's funky when you hear through the grapevine that so-and-so got sticky fingers. And so you got some individuals that will turn these things around onto leaders. You don't know who is talking to who when the owners show up. You don't know who is talking to who when the managers from the other state show up. You don't know because they're walking the floors and they're here, there, and everywhere. And some folks who's trying to protect themselves is saying some things negative about leadership to take that hound dog off the rabbit's trail. But a discerning hound dog, if you will, one that knows a thing or two about workplace politics and division amongst workers, and someone who knows a thing or two about how workers will use power and control, just like managers will use power and control to bring down an establishment, will stay on the rabbit's trail. You are not to deviate off of the rabbit's trail, the one that God has appointed and anointed and set for you, Christian. I can't speak for the worldly managers, because the worldly managers are the very ones that end up sooner or later losing their position, losing their respect with individuals, losing a whole lot. They've got a long track record usually of loss when they show up at a new establishment, organization or group. I can't speak for them because they're not interested in the one true God, in the precepts of the one true God. They're more interested in getting their fleshly needs met by any means necessary. But what I can do is speak for those individuals who are righteous leaders, leaders that are trying to keep these enemies, if you will, at bay. I can tell you that the one true God wants you to learn from every trial, every challenge, every situation that comes up, and how you can be a better leader at managing that thing or things, managing that group or groups. There are some individuals that drop the ball because they simply show their weaknesses among the workers, and the workers see the weaknesses and they know how to feed off of them. The damsel in distress knows how to dress a certain way to capture the interest of that wayward leader of a husband. The man who is a single man, very attractive, and knows how to charm the woman manager, will show up in the office, and the next thing you know, these two are in a room somewhere. Oh, I'm talking to somebody. Some of these managers are swayed and they call themselves Christians. The Lord spoke to me. He said that notice all of these leaders that end up being brought down low through a sexual scandal. Why? Does it always come to sex? Because that is a weakness of so many Christian leaders. This is why you've got to be partnered up with the right person that can be able to meet your sexual needs. That way the enemy can't come in and mess with you. So when you get married to someone, you make sure you're married to your compatibility. You make sure that you marry someone who you're very attracted to. That way you're not out there looking or feeling like you need someone or being caught off guard in a weak moment, because you see, we got many co-ed establishments. And so there are going to be those that think that sex is going to pull a leader, and they're going to try you sooner or later. It starts off with the conversation and the laughter, and then the next thing you know, you're out there doing somebody that you shouldn't. It's one thing if you are an individual who you are dating individuals because you're looking for the next person that might be your spouse. Okay. But even in the dating, you want to make sure that that's not happening in plain view where your workers can see everything, if you know what I mean. Because some people ended up being fired or being called into the office because of PDA. This is why if you have met who you believe is your one true, you need to find another department or another organization to work for. If you are a leader, or that one needs to go elsewhere, because even in a relationship like that, it can be detrimental to the operations. There are those power and control measures that the workers will come up with to come at that leader who they don't like because he is a different gender, or it could be a he, she, what have you, that they don't like. She is angry, she's bitter, she's a B, whatever. There is those individuals who will go after a leader because he doesn't spend enough money, or he spends too much money. He's this, he's that. They have their reasons. Okay. The ones who are very manipulative, and they know how to hit up all sorts of managers with power and control tactics, they will sooner or later win with a weak manager. They will. It's a fact. I've seen it happen right before my eyes. The same types of tactics that they use with their family members and friends to control them, they will take those tactics and use them in the workplace. Gaslighting, isolation, name calling, abuses of all sorts. Okay. Some people think that they're invincible. They think that their pride as a leader is their ego is so great, is so mighty that they can't be brought down by a worker, but they can. This is why some workers have been around for 10, 15, 20 plus years in an organization, because they simply knew how to use manipulation to bring leaders down. They know that some of them think that they're very smart and very sophisticated in what they do. Now, I can tell you that you can reach a place where a lot can happen in a little bit of time. What do I mean? You may have only been there a little bit of time, and a lot has happened. You thought that, okay, this is a piece of cake when you first showed up. But then the workers start coming up with all of these issues, these concerns. You don't know who's friend. You don't know who's foe. You got people who's telling on each other. You got people who's angry at one another. You got monies that were misappropriated. Okay. There is all sorts of stuff. And you're saying, how am I going to be able to overcome in this tough time right now? Of course, the one true God is going to be your savior. You are going to go to him first and foremost. I know it seems odd. It seems strange. I mean, I'm in the middle of a whole lot. I mean, what? I'm going to talk to God? You're going to talk to God if you're the believer. Once again, this message isn't for the worldly minded. You have a relationship with the one true God. You're going to talk to him, and he is going to slowly but surely show you different things that you can do to see who is friend, who's foe, how to tackle this issue and that one, who to contact when this problem arises, what issues have not yet been addressed, when to have a meeting, when not to have a meeting, who to call to have a meeting where it's just a few in this department as opposed to an entire department. God shows you these things. You simply have to be sitting down with him in the quiet of the day with a piece of paper and a pen, listing all of your troubles and concerns, and then, of course, allowing your mind that he has given you to come up with the necessary solutions, because you want to address every single issue. Because if you don't, once again, your workers are going to rise up against you. They're going to have issue with you. Now, there are those individuals who they don't like you, once again, for any number of reasons. If you can find out the reason, so be it. If you can't, who cares? You are a leader. You would like to address their concerns, but you are still the leader of the group, and you cannot be hand-holding with folks who simply don't want to hold your hand. Okay? Now, for those of you all who feel like this attack has been going on, and it just doesn't seem necessary for it to even take place because you haven't even got started really yet. Understand that the enemy is going to attack you just like he attacked Jesus in different ways, because it's to slow momentum. Consider it a compliment. I know it sounds crazy, but consider it a compliment. If I got the demonic rising up against me every which way, that's because I'm about to get blessed. And sure enough, that happened. That happened in those years of me working in all sorts of settings. I was about to get blessed. I didn't know I was about to get blessed. The enemy knew, so he ended up having all sorts of things arise. Okay? You might get approval on something that you've been waiting on. That's why the enemy's attacking. You might be expecting some type of blessing or an order that's coming around the bend. And so now you got some people who, I don't want that. I don't want this. I don't want, so what? It's happening. You got some individuals who are having their share of trauma and drama, and it's personal. It has nothing to do with you. You see, this is why there should be a relationship established with the workers from the start. What is going on? How might I be able to assist you? It's not just about those people on the outside looking in, but it's also about those individuals who you work with. How may you assist them? Some workers attack because they don't feel like they're being heard. Other workers attack because they simply have been burnt out with the organization and they can't stand another leader and another and nothing getting addressed. Some workers attack because they simply are tired of their coworkers. They're tired of their coworkers getting away with so much. They lodge a complaint. Nothing ever gets done. You've got to be in tune to what is happening in the organization and be willing to address it, not just be the head nodder who has his arms folded, or the one who simply has her hands on her hips and says, I'm going to do something and never does. The workers attack also simply because some have their share of mental illness. And nobody really paid that close attention, but you got to be like the psychologist. Who is that one in the group who is losing it, who ended up going through his or her share of PTSD and hasn't been able to get past it, okay? Hasn't healed from it. You can only be understanding for so long, and then that's when discipline has to take place. And some folks will end up losing their jobs because they never got a grip on what their personal demons were. And they chose to point the finger at things that are working quite nicely. They chose to point the finger at people who are getting along quite well. They kept drama up. So they have to go. The attack on leaders shows up and shows out, but you got God. It will happen. I know we don't want to deal with it at times, but it happens. It may be verbal. It may be physical. It may be the type of attack that you might have to go to the court and you might have to put somebody in jail. It might be the type of attack that is a curse, if you will, a spell. Something that's odd, something that's strange. You might have to be the one that goes through the deliverance ministry process and reverse the curse on the witch or witches. These sorts of things take place, but God, He is very much in our lives. If we trust in Him, believe in Him, follow His precepts, go and read some stories that are in the Bible that can help you through this tough time. Also, have the support system around you that mentally will help you, that will be there to support you. Let people know what is happening. This way, if something takes place with a worker, they can't say, well, we were unaware. You never came to us and told us that you had this situation going on in your department. You don't want to be that one that ends up feeling all alone. And now disciplinary measures are placed upon you because you didn't go through the proper protocol. So when you see the trouble brewing, you've got to alert someone, and you've got to make sure that things get done and done quickly, especially with your troubled workers who like to use gaslighting and isolation and name calling and various power and control measures because it works with their family and friends. So now I'm going to show up at the workplace, and I think it's going to work with these individuals as well. As soon as you see it, you got to put a stop to it. It doesn't matter how nice, it doesn't matter how much of a good worker this person is. They're using power plays. They're using it through intimidation, using it through all sorts of measures. People are complaining. People are ready to quit. It's time to address the issues. Thank you, as always, for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. Please do check out Workplace Politics, Satan's Agenda. We're going to go deep with it now, because some people need to have an outline of what exactly is taking place with the workplace setting. And there will be some tips to help out, because Satan is very much an entity that wants to kill, steal, and destroy, even at the workplace. Blessings to you. Please do check the description box for anything that is of interest. You've been listening to YouTube NM Enterprise 7. May God richly bless you as well as those that you love.